Now I have to get in the scene. There we go.
Are we on?
Hey, we're live, yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to Tips from Your Boyfriend. Welcome the first time, yeah. I'm Chinggis.
Bethany.
And we're here to talk about, I don't know, life experiences, advice, tips, relationships, health and wellness, anything you can pretty much think of in terms of how to be a little bit happier and healthier in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This idea came about because when I first moved to Boston, I had no idea how to layer up for the weather outside. I'm from California originally, and so cold was a whole other thing. And so he would always give me advice on how to survive Boston winters, basically. And I remember one time I was like putting on a coat and he was advising me to tuck in my bottom layer and to trap all the warmth. And he's like, baby, you gotta tuck in your shirt, that way no heat escapes. And I was like, oh, tips from your boyfriend. And then we're like, oh, that has a nice ring to it. So that's kind of the origins of how we came up with the idea of it. And we're like, we should make a podcast out of this or a live YouTube. So here we are.
Yeah. For the winter one specifically, it's like I see so many people making the mistake of getting big poofy jackets, you know what I mean? Keep thinking that that's going to keep them warm, right? And they don't think to themselves that like, okay, that big poofy jacket has a huge opening around the neck and then it has a huge opening around wherever, like how far it goes down, right? Where all of this cold air can just constantly get into it and you're just freezing the entire time and you don't realize why, because it's like, you have this poofy winter jacket you think is going to keep you warm, but it's really not doing anything because all the cold air can still get in. And so like the number one rule for winter, and I kept telling her this like back in the first winter, is that like you just got to make sure that the cold air literally just can't get in contact with your skin at any point. There can be no drafts. So it's like if it's like 20 degrees outside or 10 degrees outside, the first and foremost thing you have to do is just get a base layer of like underjohns and like a skin, yeah, exactly, and like some underwear and some like a long sleeve skin tight shirt, and just tuck it all into each other so that like even if the air gets in under your jacket or under your pants or something like that, it's still just going to be brushing up against that base layer instead of ever touching your skin or anything like that. And that'll keep you like 10 times warmer than any freaking poofy jacket that like is out there. So it's like you get the base layer that's like skin tight, you get a mid layer that's going to be nice and warm and woolly, and then the outside layer you can just almost do just like a windbreaker, you know what I mean? And you'll be 10 times warmer with that than like some big like, I don't know, there's like big brand jackets. Yeah, exactly. That people get because they don't understand how to layer for winter.
Yeah.
And it's just like you pick up these things living in an area where there is winter, and you'll never think about this when like you're living in like hotter climates. And so it's like you just need to learn how to do it. And then like one time in winter, after you get used to it, you'll be walking outside in a sweatshirt and people be like, what the hell, aren't you cold? It's like, no, like I got 3 layers on right now. You only see the sweatshirt, but I have like multiple layers on and I'm like super toasty and warm.
Yeah, I feel like after a little, 3 winters I've been through now, I finally have the layering thing kind of down, because I thought originally that I had to wear everything that I owned in order to stay warm, and then I would realize that I was sweating, and then I would get cold because I was sweating, and so it's an art.
But yeah, long story short, tips from your boyfriend came from winter dressing up.
Yep, so here we are.
Staying warm. But yeah, so there's our first episode. The first episode that we're going to keep up on YouTube, because I think we did a lot of testing with different ones in terms of trying to figure out the lighting, trying to figure out everything that we're going to be, the production value essentially of this. And then I think we wanted to start off talking about kind of some of our past experiences that have helped us or changed our mental attitude about some things in our lives, like health-wise, that have actually helped us a lot. And things that it's not struggle, but like things that we work on, but it's difficult to work on simply because of the environment that we live in here in America, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think it all started from our trip to Spain a you want to start talking about that.
Yeah, so we went to our honeymoon in Spain, and I think one of the things that was really eye-opening for us was just all the things that are banned in Europe that we allow here in the US. Because like you hear about it, you always hear like, oh, red dye is banned in Europe, but it's allowed here in the US. But like seeing it in person and feeling the difference in your body when you're there is just such a different experience. Like for example, like when you go to a restaurant in Spain, I was shocked that every place was like, no preservatives, no added sugars. They would like literally label it out, like, and it was something that they prided themselves on. And it was almost expected that any restaurant you go to is going to have these things. Whereas here in the US, you would never see that. Like you're lucky if you go into a place that says it's labeled gluten-free or vegetarian. So we were kind of looking at the things that they ban out there and looking at, well, what can we adopt here in our life here in the US to kind of model after that. So for example, one of the things that we did was we looked into our water. Out in Spain, they don't add fluoride to their water. Fluoride is a known neurotoxin. And I have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease, and fluoride is actually known to flare up thyroid issues. So it's a really bad ingredient, especially for those dealing with autoimmune stuff. So we were looking at, okay, well, how can we take the fluoride out of the water? So we did some research into that. You did some research into that.
Yeah, the water filters out here typically will not filter out fluoride unless you get specific ones. And all the best ones that do filter out fluoride are the ones that go kind of under your sink and then do it automatically through like a little faucet that you can set up. But that's a little bit more on the expensive side, and you'd want to do that once you kind of own a home. If you don't own a home, you'd want to get something a little bit more temporary, something like that we got, which was a stand-up gravity filter that you just fill the top container with water and then it filters through. But then you have like these two pylons essentially that are in there that filter the water, and we got specific ones that would filter out all the fluoride from the water. And that's what we invested in. That's what we're going to keep with us. And then like it's been really good because I think that first of all, it tastes a little bit different. I think it tastes a little bit better.
Tastes a difference.
And then over the long term, I'm thinking that it's going to help us a lot with our health so that we're not continuously exposed to any sort of heavy metals that might be in the system anymore and fluorides that we just don't need to ingest. Like fluoride's good for your teeth, right? I still use fluoride toothpaste. But the thing with fluoride toothpaste is like I brush my teeth, I spit it all out to the sink. I don't swallow all of it, so I'm not ingesting it constantly. Like some might get into my system because it's in my mouth, but like not nearly as much as I would think if I was drinking water the entire time, like just straight from the faucet for everything, you know what I mean? Like once we got that water filter, like we use that filtered water that's fluoride free for like cooking everything, for making any sort of like shakes that we'd be drinking, whether it's protein shakes or like electrolyte shakes or anything like that. We use the water for, I don't know what else do we use it for.
We even use it for like boiling pasta and other things like that. Anything that we're going to ingest, we make sure to use the filter system. And I can't honestly say that we've noticed a difference health-wise yet. We've only been using it for the past like 2-3 weeks maybe, so we'll keep you updated if we start to notice any changes outside of that. But I think just mentally knowing that we're doing the best that we can to be careful, because like there's only so much you can do, right? Like you can't bubble wrap your life, or not bubble wrap, but like I guess safety proof.
Right, exactly.
But you do what you can, right? And this is something that was doable for us and that we felt was really important. Because there's honestly no reason they should be adding fluoride to our water. Studies showed that the reason that they did it to begin with was to prevent cavities in low-income neighborhoods, and that was before like toothpaste was a big thing, brushing your teeth was a norm, flossing your teeth, and now it's really no reason to be in our water. Cavities is literally the only reason they keep putting it in our water, and at this point, like we can prevent that through other ways.
Right, brushing your teeth is so much better than drinking fluoridated water for your teeth. Like, if you brush your teeth twice a day, like, why do you need fluoridated water? You don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Fluoride is also one of those things that's a little controversial. Sure. I think there's going to be a lot of people who fall on either side of the debate. So maybe not talk about that one as much, like not really focus too much on that one. The big one, obviously, that really kicked off our health journey, even before Spain, it was like things like high fructose corn syrup, you know? And I think that's the big one that everyone can agree on is like in all foods in America, but it's like completely banned in Europe, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they don't allow it at all.
They don't allow it. So like even Coke, we don't drink Coke, But like Coke here is all high fructose corn syrup versus
Yeah.
Coke there is cane sugar, and you can't have it out there. You know what I mean? And it's not even so much like a regulation thing. I get it that it's banned, and that's probably a decent thing. Like you have top-down legislation that comes in, like bans things all out, so you can't do it. Here, it's a little different. We, as Americans, we don't really like that as much, but like it's a cultural change, right? So there should be some sort of cultural shift to kind of be a little bit more health conscious comparatively to what we are now. Like in Europe, it's a little bit more health conscious, but here we should be more so than less so. Like a lot of people will buy foods, they won't really check the labels. They'll just buy the brands that they've always liked, that they've seen on TV, that they've eaten since they were growing up as children. And they should change, not they should, but like it'll be healthier if they switched over from those brands to something that it has, like check the ingredients of them, right? If they're not very good ingredients, change to something that's better ingredients. But then it's like, that's difficult. It's a
hard.
lifestyle change. And we're not expecting like people to all of a sudden become 10 times healthier overnight and about things like that.
No. I think one thing that you're really good at is finding the lowest hanging fruit. Like, what's the most doable thing that we can do? Like, for example, when we came back from Spain, we were kind of looking at like, okay, like what's like an easy thing that we can do from what we learned out there? And the water filter was like an easy win for us. It's like, okay, we can definitely buy a filter, change what's in our water. That's an easy one that we can add into things. Or like, for example, like if high fructose corn syrup, you're like, oh, I've never really thought about that. That can be one where it's like, if you look at a label, you see it, be like, maybe not this one. So just finding that lowest hanging fruit for you. What's the easy win? You don't have to make a bunch of changes all at once. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong and get overwhelmed. Whenever we make changes, we usually make changes one at a time. We'll add one lifestyle change and we'll commit to it and we'll just add it into our lifestyle. And then once we get in the groove of that, then we'll kind of think about, okay, well, what can we do now?
I agree. High fructose corn syrup was one of those things that's relatively easy to cut out.
Yeah.
Like we don't drink soda. Cutting out soda, I feel like for some people is difficult. And that's less of a high fructose corn syrup to do and more kind of like in the realm of almost like a mental or chemical addiction kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's just like we definitely recommend working on those habits as much as possible and kicking them if possible. It's a difficult thing to do. And I think that overall health-wise, it'll be amazing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so
I think in situations like that, like if soda's like your thing, like for example, right, like we could be talking about anything, like, you know, dark chocolate's my thing, right? And if I wanted to improve that, it maybe not be just going cold turkey and cutting that out, but finding like, okay, well, what's a better swap? Like for example, like you stopped drinking alcohol for the most part, but you drink a lot of kombucha now, and that kind of was in a way a swap for you. And I feel like in a way that kind of helped you stop drinking as much or stop craving it as much because you had something else that you enjoyed that you could drink that kind of had that similar. I know it's different. I know that he's like, it is not the same as my beer, but
no, it's not that. For the record, it's not like I was ever an alcoholic, babe.
no, I don't mean to make it sound like that. But like, for example, like swapping something for something better is a lot easier than just going cold turkey, because then it's a lot harder to have a win that way than just what can I do better? How can I improve this a little bit? And then keep going in that direction.
It also helps to have social events where there's no drinking involved.
Yeah.
Because I feel like whenever you go hang out with friends, a lot of the times, everyone's always cracking like a bottle, like a couple beers, cans of beer, or like a bottle of wine, and people are hanging out, having fun, talking. No one's drinking a lot, right? I feel like once we kind of hit our age, all of our friends like all cut back on drinking like a lot because they just don't want to deal with the hangovers anymore, and they need to be able to. They want to be able to get up the next morning and actually do things because they need to do things. Like some of our friends have kids and all that kinds of stuff, so they can't just shut off an entire morning and not do anything. You know what I mean? And so it helps that a lot of people are cutting down, but then also we live in the Northeast, and so there's a lot of drinking culture here. Like when you meet up with your friends, you're having a couple beers and hanging out and having fun. So it is still difficult to not drink in those situations because people give you the side eye. People are just like, "You're not drinking?" Like, how long is this gonna happen? Like,
Yeah.
when are you gonna start drinking again?
Seriously, it came as like a shock to your friends, and not by any means that he was an alcoholic. It's just so embedded in the culture out here. That was a cultural shock for me coming from California, where it's like people don't really want to drink calories, or if they do, they'll like go for a hike afterwards to like pay for their sins, so to speak. But yeah, but for example, last night, like we went to a Christmas party and you had a non-alcoholic beer. You used Athletic Brewing, and we were drinking that instead. So instead of having to feel like you were just at a party, like having nothing, like you had your own version of it. So again, like kind of a swap, so that it wasn't like there's something in that void, and it's not just like
Right. It kind of like avoided any sorts of questions or any sorts of like accusations coming my way. Like, people would see a can in my hand, you know what I mean? They would read the can label and it will say Athletic Brewing, and they wouldn't think to themselves that's not alcoholic. They're just like, oh, he's, I don't know, kind of.
beer.
It's not even enjoying a beer. He's following the social convention that we're all following, and so there's no like, I don't know how to describe it, friction that comes from that. You know? Versus like if I'm standing there and I'm drinking a Spindrift, people will be like, oh, you're drinking a Spindrift, are you just avoiding alcohol or something like that? It's like nobody thinks to themselves. You're essentially tricking them into thinking you're drinking alcohol, but you're not. But then it's like no questions were asked, so nobody actually knows. I don't know. Anyways, I feel like we like went off on a tangent about drinking. We were talking about like some good healthy habits that we picked up in Spain, and like how our eyes were opened by some of the things that were going on there. And I feel like we should go back to that.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that opened up my eyes in Spain was that we were staying in a hotel in Barcelona, and there was a bakery in every direction within like a 5-minute walk. And then there was like a gluten-free bakery that we went to all the time that was like within a 10-minute walk.
Two different bakeries that were fully gluten-free within a 10-minute walk.
Yeah. And you would never find that around here. And so like if you ever wanted to get fresh bread that was baked that morning, bread that like you couldn't like store away for weeks and like it'll still be good, you know what I mean? Like in America, like if you get like Wonder Bread or something like that, you can put that shit you can put that stuff on a shelf for like 2 weeks, nothing would happen to it. And I'm like, okay, bacteria doesn't want to eat it. Fungus doesn't want to eat it. Why am I eating it? You know what I mean? Like, if this crap's not good enough for bacteria to eat or fungus to like eat eventually, or mold, I'm like, why am I eating it? I don't want to eat it. I guarantee if you take a slice of Wonder Bread, throw it onto like the grass outside, a squirrel will come up to it and be like, I don't want it, and just keep walking.
So accurate though.
And yet I'm expected to eat it. I don't want that. Like, I want to go down to the local bakery. I'll get some bread there. And then, like, if I ever accidentally drop it, like, before I even turn around to pick it up, a squirrel, like, run off with it.
Real food versus fake food.
Right. But it's, like, so hard to do it here in America, I feel like.
Yeah.
So many places around where people live in the suburbs or something like that are not accessible where you can just walk to the bakery. Like if you're living in a metropolitan area, like downtown somewhere, first of all, you're paying up the wazoo for your rent. But then like it's possible, right, to like walk over somewhere and get some fresh bread or get some fresh food or whatever that morning, right, without it being like super, super packaged and processed and added with preservatives so that it can stay on the shelf for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
And it's just so important to actually eat real food. Food that other things want to eat besides us, rather than food that is like, I don't know, made for human consumption and not for anything else.
Yeah. No, it's just so different in the way that they process it itself. Like, for example, like the bread in the U.S. has a lot of preservatives in it, like you were mentioning. But then also, too, they use fermentation when they're baking bread naturally in bakeries like that. They allow the bread to take its time and rise naturally without using like a ton of yeast and other things that speed up that process and make it less healthy for us. Because, like, we took down like a loaf of bread every single day that we were out there.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm talking about like a loaf of bread, like all the carbs. And we felt so good. Like we didn't feel like healthy or like lethargic or like bleh at
Yeah.
all. We felt good, we felt energized, and we were eating like crap, so to speak. But because the ingredients themselves are good, wholesome ingredients, we were fine.
Yeah. And that was like a big cultural shock. You come back here and it's like all of a sudden we just can't do that.
Yeah.
Like we were in a hotel somewhere in part of Barcelona, like in the northwestern side of the city, and 5-minute walk to the store to get some bread, and then like we stopped by like a small grocery store to grab some salami essentially,
Yeah.
or like a cured meat, and then some like fresh hummus also.
Yeah.
And then
that
like we
hummus
were just
was
like
so good.
in between meals, we'll just go in and snack on those things, and first of all, it's delicious, and then second of all, we just didn't feel like crap at all eating any of
No.
it because all the ingredients were good, and that all of it was refrigerated too. So it's like it only lasts in the refrigerator for a couple days before it starts going bad. So you have to eat it because it's, I don't know, other things want to eat it too.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. You know what I mean?
That's a good way of putting it,
Real
though.
food versus not real food. It's not exactly fake food, but it's like food made for human consumption that has been processed, and all these things have been done to it that other animals and other organisms just don't want it.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those tests for me. You know what I mean? Like if you leave something out for a week and nothing's eating it, like there must be something wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think one thing that we've adopted from that is trying to make as much stuff as we can at home, which like we do what we can, right? Like there's not always time for that. But like, for example, you started making your own almond milk.
Yeah.
Because you were looking at the backs of these almond milk and you see all the preservatives and be like, shoot, I might as well make this myself, and I can cut out all these like crap ingredients.
Biggest thing with almond milk too is that when I got store-bought almond milk for a while, I would break out in hives because I guess I was like lightly allergic to some ingredients in there.
Yeah.
But then when I make my own almond milk, nothing.
Yeah?
You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to make. It stores in the fridge for maybe like 2-3 days or something like that. So you have to make it again in 2-3 days. But first of all, it tastes so much better. It actually tastes like almonds. It's good for you because it's just almonds and salt and a little bit of sweetener, whatever sweetener you want to use, like dates or something like that.
So you use maple syrup, right?
I use maple syrup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, it's only like a tablespoon for like 4 or 5 cups of almond milk. And then like, I don't break out in hives.
Yeah.
So there's clearly nothing in almonds themselves that I'm allergic to. It's just something in the preservatives or something else that they use for the store-bought almond milk that I can't really drink.
Yeah.
And it's annoying.
Well, that's the other thing. No, go ahead.
Although now I'm healthier for it. I like making almond milk now because I like almond milk.
And I think it's really sexy. I'm like, you're so granola. I love it. He'll be like shirtless with his blender, blending his almonds. I'm like, oh, hi. No, but that's another thing too that's different in Europe is that the dairy, so we had pizza like several times out when we were in Europe. There was this one bakery that had like gluten-free pizzas that were just like, so good. I don't think you broke out at all the entire time that we were there. And like, I don't do well with dairy. I'm not lactose intolerant, but I'm allergic to casein, which is like one of the proteins in milk, which I guess is similar to gluten, which is why my body reacts to it. And like, I didn't have any reactions because the way that they raise cows in Europe is different from the way that they raise them in the US, where it doesn't have that casein protein the way that we have it here. So it's not as inflammatory. It's not as crazy. Which unfortunately that's not one that we can really do anything about here, but it's definitely something that I noticed when we were out there. I was like, oh, I can eat a pizza and not feel like bleh.
And that is a dilemma, right? It's like we picked up good habits and had a mental shift in Spain, but then we have to kind of pick and choose our battles here because we can't do everything here that we could do out there. You know what I mean? Like if we're talking about dairy, it's not like we can get dairy differently here compared to over there.
Yeah.
We can't get cheeses that are made in like, I don't know, I guess the Spanish processing style compared like here, you know what I mean? The cows are going to be different. The process is going to be different. Everything's going to be different about how they make cheese in Europe or in Spain where we were compared to how they make cheeses here. Like we can get imported cheeses, but then at the same time, do we want imported cheese? Because that cheese just sat in a ship for how long to get over here?
Yeah,
and
not
like,
to mention how pricey that would be
right.
too.
And cheese maybe is not a good example because cheese does last a while. Because it is fermented, not fermented,
It is fermented.
yeah, I guess fermented is the right word. It is fermented. which is just code for essentially bacteria, live bacteria is living in it and has like processed a little bit part of it. And so cheese is not a good example of this kind of thing. But like other dairy products that might go bad quicker, we can't really do anything about it here in America because we can't really get it.
Yeah.
So we have to pick and choose our battles. Water is one. We're trying to make water as good as possible. Any sort of high fructose corn syrups are going to be off the table. I think you wanted to start trying baking bread.
I do. I haven't tried it yet just because I'm a little intimidated by it, but I looked up some different recipes and different flours. The problem is I want to try using the flour that they used in Spain. In Spain, apparently they use what's called teff, which is something I had never heard of before because that's not really a gluten-free flour that we use in the US. And so I'm trying to figure out, is there a good way of getting that? How do I cook with it? So I'm a little intimidated by it, but I'll let you know once I start trying it because it's something if I can learn how to make our own bread, that would be fantastic because, yeah, there aren't really good gluten-free brands of bread out here. A lot of them have really creepy ingredients or a lot of brown rice. And they just don't taste good.
Yeah, they just don't taste good. But if we're able to bake our own bread, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Because then it's like we get like a good quality flour, and then we make our own bread, and then it lasts like a couple days. But we eat it in a couple days, so it doesn't go bad, right?
Yeah.
But if we did leave it alone for a couple days, you know that like mold will start growing on it. And that's like, it's not a good sign because you can't eat it, but it's a good sign because mold wants to eat it.
That should be like our new rule for food is like, if the fungus won't eat it, I won't eat it.
Yeah. It's like, will it get moldy or like, will it get like, yeah, something like that after a while. And then it's like, okay, then I will eat this food. What else in Spain do we get like good habits?
That's a good question.
Because the food was a big portion of it.
It was. I think the coffee too, like the coffees that we were having, it was literally just like coffee and milk, which I think is more for me than for you because normally you don't put sugar in your coffee. Me, I'm like, give me all the caramel, please. So I think just kind of realizing like, okay, coffee and simplicity can be good without having to have this like added sugar to it. Granted, that being said, I still put caramel in my coffee, but that was one that it's like, okay, this is something I could grow to learn. I loved just being outside all the time. That one I think was a big one for me, just like making it a priority to get time outside and go for a walk because like just what it does for just your mental well-being. I think that's really important. And I love that their lifestyle is kind of revolved around that, which it's hard too. It's like we don't live in a place where it's like we can walk everywhere. It's like you do have to take a car to get to places, but I think just being intentional about having a little bit of time just to get some fresh air outside.
Right. And like there are places around here, like we're in America, there are places around here that like are walkable, except that when you think of walkable areas, and I don't want to talk about the walkable cities meme.
Yeah.
Like, when you get to like walkable areas, like it's usually luxury living or really expensive in general. Because you think to yourself, you're going to be living downtown somewhere, you don't need a car, you just walk places, you walk to work, you walk to the grocery store, you walk to like the bars, you meet up with your friends, they all live there too. But like a lot of that stuff's just not accessible to a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like you have to be quite well off. You have to be making a decent amount of money to be able to afford that kind of thing and like not be in debt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or if you're not in that situation, you just have to get really creative. And that's where I think where a lot of people are is like figuring out like, okay, well, like where's near me that I can go for a walk? Is there a park nearby? Is there some place where around my house I can go? Or even like, for example, this is kind of a weird example, but like when the pandemic first hit, I was still in Los Angeles and they had closed down the beaches because they didn't want people to congregate. And I just wanted to go outside and go for walks. And I didn't really know where I could do that. They had closed down the hiking trails as well. So I just went to a neighborhood that I knew was really hilly and I would go and I'd walk in that neighborhood and get a good walk outside. So sometimes too, it's just like if you can think of, is there somewhere around here where, you know, I can go for a walk, but just like for just getting creative, I guess, if you have to, if you're in that situation where you need to.
All right. I mean, what else do we do in Spain?
Let's see. Oh, I know one of the other weird ones, I know for me that was kind of eye-opening, is that peanuts wasn't listed as an allergen. Like when you go to restaurants, that was kind of surprising to me because like normally when you go here in the US, it's like, you know, if it has peanuts in it, it is definitely listed like this is a top allergen. Whereas in Spain, it was actually dried fruit was listed as an allergen, which it's a high histamine food, which makes sense. So if you have like hives or like any allergies, it's going to exacerbate that. But celery was another one that was listed. Like anytime that we ate something, it would note if it has celery in it, because I guess a lot of people have an allergy to celery in Spain.
Yeah.
And then the other one was mustard. So I thought that was interesting. So not that that really translates to anything like health-wise with us, but I just found it fascinating that those were the top allergens in another country, because it's not really something that you think about. It's like I think for me personally, I thought of like top allergies being like around the globe top allergies, but it makes sense that different diet, different allergens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I feel like recently in the US, allergens have been trending upwards in terms of like people are freaked out about it and all that kind of stuff. People are like keeping their kids away from as many allergens as possible, and that seems counterintuitive of what you're supposed to do. I feel like you're supposed to expose your kids to as many things as possible at a young age, so that they don't develop any sort of reactions to those things, right? Once their immune systems are up to speed when they're children, it's like as adults they'll never have those kinds of allergens or allergies to those things. But I don't know. That's up to parents and individuals and all that kinds of stuff. Like once you have a serious allergy, obviously keep it serious and like don't eat those things or be careful. But I think there should be a trend more so here to expose children in a safe way to more allergens so that they kind of grow out of their allergic reactions to it as their immune systems get more and more used to it.
Yeah.
Because if you feel like they're going to be allergic to something and you completely like isolate them away from that substance, like peanuts, it's guaranteed that they will have an allergy to it later in life, and their immune systems later in life will never get adjusted to it, because I feel like children's immune systems are a little different.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know too much about allergies. Like I know like general trends of what maybe you should and shouldn't do. Like I have opinions about that, but like allergic reactions are not my forte.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. And I think too, even with like the gluten-free, because like everywhere that we went was labeled like gluten-free. And I don't think it was just because we were in a tourist zone, because we were going to some areas that weren't necessarily like touristy. And it was still like gluten-free options, vegan options, like everything was labeled. And I don't think that was necessarily because there are a ton of people who have celiac disease or whatever. I think it's just they know gluten's inflammatory, so I'm going to avoid it in my diet. And I think that's kind of just more in the culture itself. I could be wrong. I could be totally talking out of my butt on this one, but just that's kind of the sense that I get, is that like as a country, they're kind of avoiding.
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking out of my butt then.
No, you're fine. I'm thinking like, I think that there's just more acceptance and inclusivity of people who need to be gluten-free. That's all.
Got it.
Like, I feel like at that point over there, people realize that a lot of people are gluten intolerant. And so businesses will create gluten-free menus, and a lot more businesses over there would create them compared to over here. Because I feel like here still, like there's a culture of like, that it's a health fad. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Where like a lot of people are like, are you actually gluten-free? Like, are you actually allergic? Do you have celiacs? Or like, are you following this health fad? And it's all kind of BS. And like people don't want to like think to themselves like, oh, this person is actually like health conscious for themselves. Versus over there, I think people have accepted it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of businesses out there just have gluten-free menus because there are a lot of people out there who either have celiacs or have some sort of sensitivity who will buy from those menus. And like, if you are celiac or you're sensitive, you will not go to a place that doesn't have gluten-free, and you will not like visit that place. And all these businesses have like an incentive and they're very accepting, and the culture has shifted to create gluten-free items so that they can continue going to their favorite places. Like those gluten-sensitive people can continue going to all their favorite businesses, things like that. I think it's just a mental cultural shift there where they have accepted that people do have celiacs versus the culture here has kind of been suspicious about people who are just either following a health fad or people do actually have an allergy or something like that.
That's true. That's true. Because I do feel like kind of similar to how we were talking about, like when you stop drinking alcohol, your friends are like, well, when are you going to go back on it? Like I feel like if you're not celiac, there's kind of that trend out here where it's like if someone goes gluten-free, people are like, well, when are you going to start eating gluten again? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We got a way to go.
Yeah.
Because eventually the health fad will go away, but all the celiac people will still be there.
I was going to say.
And so like, at one point, like all these people are to be like, oh, when are you going to eat gluten again? The person's going to be like, never. I'm celiac. I can't eat it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, of course we have like all this gluten-free stuff.
Well, they're also discovering that for any autoimmune issues, and I feel like autoimmunity is like really on the rise in the last few years, especially. Either it wasn't diagnosed before, or just due to the crap that's in our food and in our environment, it's getting more popular, which I think is the case. But even for example, I have Hashimoto's, which is another autoimmune condition with your thyroid. They actually say don't eat gluten because it actually increases autoimmunity. So I think because of that, more and more autoimmune communities are going to have like gluten-free diets because that's when more and more people are going to be gluten-free by necessity or by like doctor's guidance.
Yeah, and I think that like any sort of sensitivities to foods, people want to avoid in general. So if they're gluten sensitive, avoid gluten. If you're sensitive to other types of food, avoid those other types of food. And a lot of times, like it takes a while to figure out what you're sensitive to. And the big thing with sensitivities is that if you eat foods that you're sensitive to, there's going to be a lot of inflammation in your system that you're not quite aware of until you figure out how to understand it, like what's going on, that you want to avoid if possible. I don't remember exactly what it is. I could be pulling it out of my butt, but like it was from the Human Run podcast about like how people want to avoid inflammation in their systems. And so any sort of foods that you might eat that might have that might cause inflammation in your systems, you typically want to avoid those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly what he talked about in his podcast, but like the gist of it is to figure out what foods kind of don't agree with your gut microbiome or don't agree with your body or system, and try to avoid those foods. It's not the end of the world if you eat it, right? Like a little inflammation is not going to be bad in your digestive system, but like you don't want it in there, and so you want to feel healthy. You want to feel like everything is going down and you're digesting things and you're absorbing all the nutrients that you need to be absorbing, and then like and being a more healthy person. So like going back to the gluten thing, it's like if you're gluten sensitive or celiac, obviously avoid gluten, and like that'll be healthier for you. If you have autoimmune issues, or if you're going to be breaking out in hives, or if you have some sort of like mild allergy to things, avoid those things as much as possible. But then sometimes you can't. Like I am mildly allergic to dairy. I don't know if I'm dairy lactose intolerant like exactly, but I'm at least mildly allergic to it. So I can't have any glasses of like milk or anything like that, right? And I really should be avoiding most cheeses, if not all cheeses. But like, I still eat cheese sometimes.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like picking your battles, living a little bit when you need to. Like if it's serious, obviously, like respect that. But yeah, because I'm the same with you on the dairy thing too. It's like I don't deal well with casein, but like I need me some cheese.
Yeah, we don't drink milk. You know what I mean? We don't have normal dairy milk. We just avoid all that. But like every now and then, like if we're at a party or doing something else, we'll eat some cheese. Or like if I'm going to Chipotle or something like that, like I'll get some cheese on my bowl. You know what I mean? It's just worth it. Yeah. Like for like a couple hours after eating it, like I might feel a little bit slightly more itchy all over. You know what I mean? I'll get like a little bit of redness and like a little bit of itchiness, but like I don't care. It's like not that issue. I avoid most dairy in general, but every now and then it's like it's okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Avoid inflammation if you can. It'll be better for your body.
Yeah, definitely.
What else?
I'm trying to think of like what else was eye-opening when we were out in Spain, as far as food goes. what I just go back to is like how good I felt. And like you could say it's like, okay, well, lack of stress and whatever else, but we were traveling 3 different times between 3 different cities, and we still had a bunch of like events coming up in the US that we were planning for. So it wasn't like it was like a stress-free thing. We still had a lot on our minds and other things going on. So it's like, you can't say that it was like, wow, you didn't have any stress and that's why you felt so good. I think a huge part of it was honestly the fact that we were eating well, we were drinking good water, we were being outside, we were getting a lot of rest. I think that helped a lot too. We were sleeping in
a lot.
Quite a bit. Yeah. We never really left East Coast time when we were out there.
We did 100%.
We'd go to bed super late and then we'd sleep in really late.
My body 100% shifted too. Like, not entirely, but it did shift. Because like once we came back, I was just up at like 5:30 or 6 every single day.
That's true.
Like, my body was just awake and I would just get up.
That's true.
But now like it's shifted back. Now I get up at like 7:30, like 7-ish, 7:30.
Ew.
It awakes.
Gross.
No, it's fine.
I'm not a morning person.
That's why I make coffee for you in the morning.
It is true. He makes me coffee every morning and brings it to me in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coffee is one of those other like pick our battles things. Not only is it cheaper to just make coffee at home, but it's also going to be healthier for you. Like when we don't drink coffee, like we don't have a coffee machine or a coffee grinder or anything like that. We drink espressos. And so we have an espresso machine. We buy Nespressos, which are about $1 a pod. And then I make my lattes from my almond milk that I make myself with an espresso pod, and that's basically it. And so it's not bad for you. Like, if I really wanted to get into it, I could kind of like look at the ingredients of the Nespresso pod, but like I don't want to go into that too far into it.
Yeah.
It feels a little too much.
Because then we'd have to like get coffee that like is low mold and grind it ourselves and like go down that road. So like we're not there.
Yeah, because like grinding coffee down for espressos is more difficult than grinding it for just coffee. It needs to be much finer.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. So we made an improvement there. Could we improve it more? Sure. But right now this works for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we don't get Starbucks anymore because it's like, first of all, lattes at Starbucks like $7
Like,
each.
yeah, 8 at least.
When I make them at home, it's like
Jeez.
$1.50 each.
Yeah.
And then like, it's also better for us because we just use all of our own ingredients as
Yeah.
much as possible.
So like for example, like he still puts caramel in my drinks, but he knows exactly how much is going in there. Like I remember we went to a coffee shop that was local here, and at the bottom of the cup there, I kid you not, it was this much of like caramel that piled up at the bottom, and I got so grossed out by it. Like we have not been back since, just because I was literally just drinking pure sugar.
Yeah.
So it's nice knowing like how much exactly is going in.
It's a win-win. Like, we save a crap ton of money, and then it just tastes better, and it's better ingredients. The only thing about it is that you actually have to just make it yourself.
Yeah.
And so, like, I know that a lot of people don't want to or don't have time to per se, but like, it's definitely
Don't have
worth
time
it.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people are busy. Some people, not everybody.
I was gonna say it takes longer to like go to the store and pick it up, even if you order it ahead, than it does to like make it yourself at home. So I feel like that's not really an excuse. Sorry, that's like one of my biggest pet peeves is when people say like, I don't have time for this. It's like, well, you don't prioritize it. It's just not a priority for you. Like, yeah, you could be busy, and like again, it could be one of those like picking and choosing your battles things. Maybe it's one of those things where you're just like, well, I just don't want to prioritize that, but say that instead of like, I'm so busy, I don't have time.
It's one of those things that I would apply the 80-20 rule to. If someone tells you they don't have time, 80% of people are making an excuse, 20% of people don't have time. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. You can 100% be a part of that 20%. But I feel like 80% of the time, they're making an excuse, which is okay. Like, if you want to make an excuse in that sense because like you were focusing on something else, like it's not really my business to be like, you're a liar, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you do you. You know?
Yeah. It's
Like,
just,
I stopped worrying about what other people are like, habits like that. And like, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. It's like, it's your life.
yeah. No, definitely. But don't say I don't have time for it. Say it's not a priority for me. I'm not choosing to do that.
But it's code for that. You know what I mean?
That's true. I don't know. But then
no.
it's the whole like not taking responsibility for things though. That's where I get like take responsibility for your life.
But I don't mind it too much because even a lot of people. So of those 80% of people that say they don't have time, that are making an excuse, in reality what they're saying is that I'm not going to prioritize this habit. And even though they could if they wanted to, which is essentially them admitting that I'm not going to prioritize saving money, eating better quality ingredients and better taste, and like, what was the last one? I feel like it's better for you in general, right? But like they don't want to say that because that makes them look bad, and so what they say is like, I don't have time. But like, just read between the lines. So people saying like 80% of the people who say they don't have time, they're just like, I don't want to prioritize like this good stuff, and so it's like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not here to tell anybody how to live.
Yeah. Not the intent of this podcast. We're
Right.
just chatting based off of what our experiences have been.
Yeah, and it's like you have to be in the right place in your life in order to actually make these changes.
Yeah.
Like some 21-year-old, I'm going to tell them like, make your own espressos.
Yeah, it's true. What? Yeah. No.
There's just no way.
Yeah, I know. I think that's where it comes back to, like, well, what are my priorities? And, like, what's the lowest hanging fruit? Like, what's the easiest thing to incorporate? And then go from there.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I don't know. What's the small stuff that I can do? Like, somebody who's our age, 30s, early 30s, 100% will relate to what we're saying. And they'll talk about their experiences about making good changes and positive changes in their life, right?
Yeah.
But let's say somebody who's early 20s or mid 20s, like, what are they taking away from this? Because they're going to be listening to us and be like, you freaking boomers.
We're not that old. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think it's just a matter of, like, I think ingredients would probably be a big one for that age group. Like, actually taking a look at, like, okay, what's on the label of what I'm eating? I think that's a big start. Because for me, like, I was diagnosed with celiac in my 20s. Before that, never looked at a label ever. I had no idea what I was consuming. I didn't know how to read the label, didn't know, that the order of ingredients actually shows like what, like the first ingredient on a label was like what the most of that's in that product. And then it goes down to like the last ingredient on there is like the very least amount that's in that product. Like I didn't know that. So I think that's an easy one to incorporate. Like for example, the high fructose corn syrup is like just taking a peek like, oh, does it have this? No, maybe I'll pass on that. I think that's an easy one. I think that's an easy win for younger.
I think we need to communicate in a way that they'll understand. I think I don't know if this is the best way, but like, listen, if you're eating food that mold will not eat, what are you doing? Like, even mold doesn't eat that. Why are you eating that?
Yeah.
That crap's trash. It's just trash. Mold doesn't want it. You know what I mean? And yet you want it. Are you worse than mold? Like, I don't get it. Like,
you're lower than a fungus.
Seriously.
God.
Like, eat a food that'll be gone in one day. You know what I mean? Because everything is going to be fighting for it. You have the opportunity. You get a food, and then, like, God forbid you leave it alone outside for, like, one day, and, like, it's gone. That's kind of the food that you want to be eating. Mm. If you leave Wonder Bread outside for a day, you're going to come back, and it's still going to be there.
It's true.
Ugh.
It's true.
It's like those McDonald's things, you know what I mean? Like, they take a McDonald's, like either a hamburger or like a McDonald's fries, and they put it in like into this like glass case, right? And then like it's a video, and on the top of the video is like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and you're looking at it, and it doesn't change, and you're like day 14, and you're looking at the little basket of fries, and it's just the same exact fries. And then you fast forward to like day 365, 1 year later, and that freaking basket of fries looks exactly the fucking same as before, and you're like, I eat that crap. It's not food. It's like plastic. It's like made from something that's like, it just stays there forever.
It's chemicals, basically. Speaking of when we were in Spain, when we were in Madrid specifically, we had McDonald's 2 or 3 times. This is a confession here. We were in a pinch, just needed quick, easy food. But the difference between McDonald's there versus here is, number one, they actually have gluten-free options, because none of the McDonald's out here has anything gluten-free. And then number two, they actually like get grass-fed like beef, and they label it that way. So like, I don't know like how much better the meat is out there compared to here. I'm sure it's a lot of crap going into it still, and I'm sure there's still chemicals and all the gross things, but like it's still like nowhere near as gross as like it is out here. But yeah, that was one where
moral of the story. Listen. It's better to eat healthy and have these weird like unhealthy cheat days.
Yeah.
Than it is to just be unhealthy, but then like every now and then try to be healthy for a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're 90% of the time eating like good food, you know what I mean? Like food, not mold worthy food. Then just go eat McDonald's every now and then. You can.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Your body will handle it. You know what I mean? Versus if you're eating crap food all day, every day, like if you're eating ramen noodles all day, every day, like, oh man, like. That's
the thing. It's like we prioritize like trying to be healthy as much as we can. So it's like we didn't beat ourselves up for having McDonald's like however many times we had it in Spain. It's embarrassing, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, it gives you more freedom, or it makes you feel like you have some more freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it easier.
Yeah. Episode 1.
Yeah, it's interesting. Trying to figure out how to communicate with people.
Yeah.
Because 30, again, people our age, 100% guarantee. You can talk to them, they'll be making positive changes, right?
Yep.
Because like, I feel like once you hit like your mid-30s or so, your body starts getting these pains that you never felt before, and then like it kind of hits you whether you're going to continue going down this unhealthy path of habits that you've developed over your life, if you've developed those habits, or you make a shift to like be healthier.
Yeah.
Right? But then like communicating with like early 20-year-olds, it's like, how do you do it?
I think
because they don't care about health. They're young. You know what I mean? When you're young, your body just compensates for a lot of things.
Because I think if they click like to listen on our podcast and they've gotten to this point where we're talking right now, like they're interested enough about their health to have like even listened to begin with. Like if they're not interested, they're not even going to listen to us, period. So I feel like if they're mature enough or like eager enough to hear about health, then they'll hear us out.
But like, it's preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you're just preaching to healthy people, they're already healthy.
Yeah.
They don't need to come in here and get like more. Confirmation bias is great. Like people telling you you're doing the right thing. Awesome. That's awesome. But what we need to do is we need to get to those people. We need to connect with and actually communicate with and reach those people who are like who need to live healthier lifestyles. Not need to, should live healthier lifestyles.
That's true. I think that'll come with like us talking about varieties of topics and people listening in for different reasons too. Mm-hmm. But we'll learn as we go.
Just breaking through to them. I'm just trying to think about how to do it. Because we can talk about good things and bad things all the time.
Yeah.
And people who are on board will nod their head and be like, yeah, totally. It's the person who'll be like, you're full of crap. That's the person we need to reach.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
It's true. Yeah. Good team.
Good team. All right. Thanks for listening in for our first episode. I'm Chinggis.
I'm Bethany.
We are the Calistons, and this is the podcast Tips from Your Boyfriend. And then we will put up the post-show like credits scene, and then that'll link to some of our socials. Follow us on social media.
Yeah.
I'm only on Twitter at the Caliston.
And then we have an Instagram page now, Tips from Your Boyfriend, and so we'll start to post some content on there about just our life and sharing some of that with you. So our little day-to-day stuff. Yeah,
and then like this is our first episode, so we're trying to figure some stuff out. Like production value is gonna be going up, and then like I feel like we're gonna try to stay away from a lot of the roboticness of it and just try to be a lot more conversational about things.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna be easier to stay conversational when we're trying to reach people that don't want to be reached.
Yeah.
Like if you're just preaching to the choir, you have an audience that's like fine. But like reaching people who who need to be reached,
Yeah.
that's going to be a lot harder to do.
Yeah, I think our intention and our heart for this show is just to keep it real, to be honest. Like, we're not planning on editing this at all. We're planning on keeping it live, so that we can actually just be real with people. And we never want to have something where we're talking about something that we're not actually practicing ourselves. Like, I think that's really important to us, that we live out our values, and the things that we talk about on here are something that we're actually like backing up with our lifestyles.
Yeah. We're never going to tell you to eat like kale all day, every day.
Yeah,
To be
no.
healthy.
We will not.
We will not do that ourselves.
It's true.
Yeah. But yeah, next show, not sure when. We're going to stick to Sundays, I feel like, for now, right?
Yeah, so right now we're trying to figure that out of like when we'll post. Eventually we'll land on a consistent schedule. If you guys have certain times where you'd like to tune in to watch us live, let us know. And if there are any topics that you'd like to hear us talk about too, then drop that in the comments as well.
It'll definitely be Sundays for now.
Yeah.
Sunday mornings, typically. And then we will try to do some nights during the week as well. And then
Yeah.
like, depending on how much free time we have and all that kinds of stuff, might be more, might be less, but we'll let you know.
Yeah.
All right? And scene.